What can you do? There is nothing you can do, see. Where you are born, it is fate for you and me. What can I do? There is nothing I can do, see. We couldn't live like each other, you and me. In my speech today, I will argue against this chant and show why we as women want change and how we can make it happen. You've been working for 3 days, but you know water determines life, death, and the quality of life, particularly of women. When I visited slums and remote rural areas in my time in Oxford and Nova in developing countries, I always asked women about their daily activities, and I learned how hard they worked. An endless cycle of cleaning, cooking, fetching water, working at the land, selling at the markets, piecework, constructing clothes, shoes, sport balls at home, long days of unpaid overwork in factories. Overworked, underpaid, underfed, and consequently dying unnecessarily. Let me share some killer facts. 500,000 women a year die in childbirth, often through lack of hygiene, water, or health. It's a horrible death. That's 1,350 women today. 10 million children under 5 die yearly from preventable causes such as diarrhea, water. So that is 27,000 little ones gone today. And to make this number speak, in less than 2 days, all children under 5 in Amsterdam will be dead. 1 billion people, that's 1 in 6, 7 in the world, suffer daily hunger. Here in the Netherlands, we still vividly remember the last winter of the Second World War when food was scarce, the hunger winter it's called, and hunger killed, and hunger does. In the world's day I have seen starvation, and I can never get that off my eyes, my ears, my nose. Finally, 2.6 billion people, that's 40% of the world population, have no access to sanitation, water. Please look at your 2 neighbours and think what it would be like. But they do have toilets, but you have to go into a field and find a bush to squat behind as a woman. Still today, many schools in Africa don't have toilets for girls. This is one of the major reasons for the high dropout rates. So, you know all this. Having access to water determines so much for the daily lives of women, whether they can cook, wash, keep their children clean and healthy. Yet in rural Africa, more than half the population lack access to clean water. And what always gets to me is that in most cities, in the upper and middle classes, they get their water virtually free of charge, including for the swimming pools, while in the slums, every bit of water costs money, considerable money for people on the brink. What is not often talked about, not talked about enough in my mind, is the stress women living in poverty suffer. The daily insecurity of searching for water, firewood, food, the domestic violence, which increases as food gets scarce, the communal violence, the stealing, the rape in the slums, in the fields, made so easy by the amount of handguns flooding into countries cheaply. In some countries, you can easier buy a gun than a loaf of bread. Poverty kills, not just physically, but also emotionally. This terrible reality, which I have described, will get worse in the coming years, because the combined global crisis we are facing now, the climate crisis, the food crisis, the energy crisis, the financial crisis, started in the north, which is now affecting real economies all over the world. Women are losing their formal and their informal and their part-time jobs. Migrant women, more than half of the migrants in the world today, are struggling and unable to send back as much money home in remittances. The price of water and food has gone up. Speculation on food has been increasing. The big monopolistic food companies have made huge profits last year over the backs of women starving. What really is happening, and it's not talked about enough, is the feminization of poverty. The poorest of the poor are women with their young children, their sick, and the elderly. And for years, we have been using the 70% statistic. 70% of the poorest of the poor are women. I am sure that this is going up now as we speak, quite rapidly, but the figures won't come out for 2 or 3 years. And what do women do when they have to survive to care for their children, their parents, their sick family members? They work longer hours. If necessary, they sell their bodies. What other choices do they have? For some, the stress of poverty, the hunger, the lack of perspective especially, becomes too much. They die. And they become another cold statistic. All the women I have spoken to through the years have said exactly the same. My life is not so good, but I want my children to have a chance to be healthy, a chance to get some education, a chance to find a job, and to live a better life than mine. To conclude, water is life, access to water is a human right. You know this, water determines the quality of life of women all over the world. Now, having thoroughly depressed you on this Sunday morning, I now come to the second part of